I'm Daniel Greenspan with Snack Magic. We are a proud sponsor of the Hospitality and Tourism Summit. Before I introduce our panel, I'd like to show you a quick video presentation on what Snack Magic is all about and how it can help you in your planning process going forward. Snack Magic is the only 100% customizable snack and swag box service where gift recipients select from over 500 delicious snacks and beverage products to build their own personalized box. Snack Magic is the perfect gift to give to friends, family members, clients, remote working employees, and virtual event attendees. Employers and conference planners and their sponsors are trying to come up with a physical touchpoint, some way to connect and leave a lasting, memorable experience. Snack Magic does more than just deliver some snacks. We deliver an amazing interactive experience that will make your gift recipients so happy and leave them feeling energized for weeks on end. The Snack Magic experience starts when the gift recipient receives an email letting them know they're about to go on a snack shopping spree, courtesy of you and your organization. Imagine the excitement. From there, the recipient gets to pick out the snack and beverages that they want from over 500 unique items. So many people involve their family members in the process, making it an exciting stay-at-home activity. The best part of the Snack Magic experience is when their custom snack stash arrives. It takes most people weeks to go through all of their snacks. Every time they go into their pantry to grab a snack, they'll be thinking of you and your thoughtful gifts. Here are a few things to know about Snack Magic. Each recipient makes their own custom box and it's shipped out individually. Boxes start at $45 and include free shipping nationwide and taxes. There are no subscriptions and there's no order minimum. And Snack Magic is not a gift card. Any gifts not redeemed are credited back to you. If the recipient goes over their budget, they just pay the difference with their own personal credit card. From the organizer's side, Snack Magic is going to be the easiest gift you will ever give. The setup process literally takes 2 to 3 minutes. No physical addresses are needed for setup as the recipient will enter that on their own during their snack box selection. We have a user-friendly treats dashboard which will help you keep track of who's redeemed their gifts, access itemized receipts, and view your gift recipients' thank you notes after they've received their Snack Magic boxes. These thank you notes are great to share with coworkers and sponsors. We recommend starting the ordering process at least 20 days prior to the event's date. Shipping typically takes 2 to 6 days. We also offer some amazing customization options to make your upcoming event stand out. We can include your swag in our individual boxes, whether you purchase it directly from us or ship it directly to us. We offer custom printed boxes where you can incorporate your brand's logo. Additionally, we offer branding and messaging in areas throughout the recipient's ordering process. On our homepage, you'll be able to find the Book a Call button. Set up some time with us, and we can walk you through the ordering process when you're ready to move forward. All right, thank you so much for watching the video. Much appreciated. Please visit snackmagic.com to learn more about Snack Magic. And as mentioned in the video, you can go and click book a call with us on the website. If you have any questions at all, please email me at daniel@snackmagic.com. It's now my pleasure to introduce Tim O'Malley, CEO of Ateema Media and Marketing, who will be leading today's panel discussion entitled The Changing Role of Meeting and Event Planners. Ateema Media and Marketing, formerly known as Concierge Preferred, was born in 2001 as a premier visitor publication in Chicago under the leadership of Tim O'Malley. Today, Ateema has grown beyond just the Chicago tourism market to help businesses connect with meetings and event planners, DMCs, hotels, concierges, CVBs, and other key business influencers in Chicago, and recently expanded into the San Francisco Bay Area. For today's session, Tim pulled together 3 seasoned event professionals to share their perspective on how the role of planners has changed and how they see the industry going back to normal. I'm excited to hear the different perspectives from these planners. So with that, please enjoy the changing role of meeting and event planners.
Welcome, I'm Tim O'Malley, CEO of Ateema Media and Marketing. producer of the Hospitality and Tourism Summit. Thanks for being with us today. Given we've all been pushed into the proverbial virtual events pool, sink or swim no doubt, the industry has really been turned on its collective ear. In short, the industry has changed more in the last 6 months than in our lifetimes. That being said, you can't keep good people down. We've seen significant innovation that has been nothing short of remarkable, and we're seeing the industry moving in the right direction, maybe not at the speed we all want. Today, we've brought together a fabulous panel of experts to help us explore what that change means to meeting and event professionals and the support system around them as we move forward. I'd like to start by introducing our panelists. Our first panelist, Matt Bohn, has been planning events for 13 years and is currently the external events manager for Huron Consulting Group. His team is responsible for driving market demand for the company's products and solutions. Most recently, Matt assisted with the transition of Huron Studer Group's largest conference, What's Right in Healthcare, from an in-person event to a fully online experience. Prior to this role at Huron, he was an executive event planner with Walgreens, organizing global meetings for company executives as well as board members. Matt is also the gala coordinator for the Midwest's largest LGBTQ+ fundraiser, the Equality Illinois Gala. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you.
Yes, this would be the applause time. Michelle Durpetti started in the events industry through a slightly different path. She started with a PR company, Jaskulka Turman and Associates, working on high-profile events for Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. That's a big place to start. She was also a part of the team that produced the event surrounding the opening of Bill Clinton's Presidential Library dedication ceremony. She's run her own company, Michelle Durpetti Events, since 2008. She also is the third-generation managing partner at Gene and Giorgetti, which is a Chicago gem, by the way, and just started the Illinois Events Coalition. In her free time, which I know what everyone's thinking, how could you have free time with all this? She has been horse crazy for most of her life and is an avid equestrian. She especially enjoys competing in various horse shows throughout Illinois and the US. Thanks for being with us, Michelle.
Happy to be here.
Finally, my friend Sean Lynch is the president of NHS Global Events. Sean may have one title, but his day-to-day work at NHS Global Events includes a wide range of, well, everything. Sean has a laser focus on SMMP, along with new meetings and events industry trends that help clients prosper. Sean is active in several industry associations and doing his part. His biggest role has been serving on the Meeting Professional International Chicago Chapter Board of Directors, including serving as the organization's president from 2012 to 2013. In addition to his pride in NHS Global Events and his other industry contributions, Sean is most proud of his family, including Mary, his spouse, and their children, Chris, Natalie, and Ryan. Thanks for being with us, Sean.
Thank you, Tim.
You should know that we've pulled most of our questions for our panel from a survey that we sent to you. Let's jump right into their questions, and we're going to start with one. How will we use virtual events when the pandemic is over? I mean, we've all seen, again, this movement from in-person to online, but how much of the online stuff is going to stick, the virtual events is going to stick as we move forward?
I think that's such an interesting question because we don't quite know when, we'll stop using terms like pandemic. We don't, unprecedented, new normal. We don't know when we're going to stop using those terms. So I think what is great about the direction that the industry is moving in terms of how it's becoming more digital, how it's becoming more virtual, is that the industry is fighting with a lot of tenacity to survive and evolve. And so I think that what's important is that we're all learning how to do this as we go, and that we know it's going to be here for a while, because I believe even post, the actual using of the term pandemic, I think there's still going to be some waves of how we return back to anywhere near where we were prior to this. So I don't see virtual events going anywhere anytime soon. So I think it's a very good thing that we are moving in this direction. And I hope that we can continue to become more educated and work together to improve, the process as we figure this all out.
Okay, so I guess that means that the four of us can't just agree that those terms are going away? Because I'd love to do that right now if it was possible.
Someday.
I don't think we can agree on that. I think if you define our industry, we have MICE, meetings, incentives, conferences, and events, and some are more natural to be virtual, and some are just absolutely have to be face-to-face. So we do see that. I see the technology side of that question being really robust and ever-changing in a positive mode. I do see the content side having a little more problem remaining the same. I think people are going to get zoomed out. You don't have a captive audience like you do face-to-face. So there'll be some things that improve and other things that we've tested and tried that we hope to never do again. I don't know if Matt agrees, but I'll throw it over to you.
Yeah, I think we're going to see definitely a hybrid model, because I know some of our attendees have already said, hey, when are we going to meet back in person? The other half is, hey, we like this virtual. I always struggle to get budget to come. So one of the big things, we see coming out of this is, how do we make it, if it's a paid event, how do you make sure that the people who are live and on site are actually getting what they paid for, and then the virtual side still is engaged. So it's definitely not going away, but I think we'll slowly see it move into the more hybrid model, and that won't go away for a while.
That's such an interesting.
Go ahead. Sorry, Michelle.
I was going to say, that's such an interesting thing, both what Sean and Matt have said. For me, where I come into this discussion, I come from a little bit of a different place in that the events company that I own, and the majority of the events that I produce now are actually weddings. So I do a fair amount of wedding production in addition to live events as well. And Matt, when you're talking about, sometimes events just need to be face-to-face, I think Sean, you mentioned this too. For us, when you're doing a wedding, you get zoomed out, this is an accurate term, very quickly. And the challenge that we face is, experientially, how are you in the moment when you're on a computer screen? So there is definitely, I think you're both 100% right, Matt, with what you were saying, that hybrid conversation needs to keep happening and keep developing. And Sean, the value of, some events just need to be in person and some can go virtual. I think it's an interesting discussion for events, like you had mentioned, the different kinds of events that are out there. It really is depending on, what kind of event you produce or attend. I think the virtual element comes into play a little bit differently.
Well, you all kind of.
Well, real quick, Michelle, everybody wanted to videograph their wedding, but now they have a video recording of their wedding, right?
Right,
so,
right.
Similar in a business meeting, they didn't really capture the content, and now they're so glad they've captured it on video or technology. So there's some good things that are going to happen regardless of how it progresses.
Well, that's really good. I think in all three of your initial statements, you sort of mentioned, some of it falls flat. That's one of the questions that we received from someone in the audience, which is, how do you generate excitement and interest around virtual?
Well, right now we don't want the audience to get zoomed out, so we have to stay high energy and enthusiastic, and remember, it's about the audience. It's not about the host and what have you. I don't know if I have any panacea there, though. Turn it over.
I don't know, Sean, but that virtual background you have there is a pretty good start.
I think there are ways too now that we're starting to discover how to bring experience and experiential elements into the virtual experience. For example, I'm working with 2 clients right now who are looking to take their galas virtual. Matt, I believe you just did this, so this might ring a bell with you. Something that was really important to us was, okay, how can we create a meal that maybe they have access to picking up at a certain time slot, locations that are potentially easy to them. I'm talking about locally here in Chicago, which made it a little easier. It wasn't a national event, but 300 people attending, and we went to a specific restaurant that happened to be mine. So now I'm coordinating on both sides of this, but we created a menu that we felt would A, travel well, B, be something fun. We included a little, one-use cocktail kit so that as they're getting ready, they can make a cocktail. There's instructions. And so my point is, how you layer in experiences now is, I think, one of the major objectives on some of the smaller events that I do. As you go more national, that challenge is still very present and still kind of in development.
Yeah, one of the main things that we've seen is blocking out chunks of time. So I think everyone is used to that 45-minute time frame. So, we've seen some success there. But another one is we've kind of moved away from just presenting at people and making it more of a story. It's more of a personal side with every presenter that we have. We want to have people have that emotion and really use that chat feature. we've seen chat just skyrocket for us, where that's how we're getting people engaged. That's how we know the topic is going really well. And then incentive-wise, it's for us, it's more about the content. And we can also offer sometimes continuing education credits, things like that. That's how we're enticing people, but we're not trying to shove too much information out there because people are overloaded. So making sure it's the right content in front of the right people.
Matt, you mentioned you were successful with the chat. Can you give us a little more on that? Because I think there's a lot of people that hear about some success stories, but would like to sort of drive that sort of engagement through their own events, virtual events.
Yeah, primarily what we did is we actually used two different features. So somewhat of the, within Zoom, you have that chat, but we didn't do Q&A in there. That was specifically just for people to have their own conversations. And then side, we used another technology where they would actually ask the question on their phone, or they do polling on their phone. So that way it's keeping them engaged in multiple areas. So we would stop and, we made sure we took those pauses to say, hey, now we want everyone to take a poll. Hey, now we want everyone to answer a question. But then also with the more feeling ones, we actually had a number of our different salespeople on the chat role itself, actually answering questions or engaging with people, being like, hey, this is a topic that I like because of this. So just making sure you get the ball rolling and actually encourage people, maybe start the presentation. I know we've seen success where we say, hey, before we begin, everyone start putting in the state or city from which you're zooming in from. And people go nuts for that. And it gives them that initial push.
Well, I guess that works anywhere where you're from. People are excited about that. Never thought of it. Yeah.
So, you see some of the other things that have tried and true. I mean, you go around a trade show and you see people with the old tchotchkes or GIFs. So you can still do GIFs if they attend a virtual trade show. You can. In the industry, we saw a lot of gamification on conference apps occurring. So you can get points for registering early. You can get registered for sitting in the general session on time and add up those points. So you can still use some of the tried and true face-to-face approaches in a virtual world. You just have to think it out a couple levels.
Yeah, we've got a couple businesses that we work with that specialize in some of that, like Live Art International. They'll send out wine glasses that you can paint, while you're doing a virtual session, with them, talk you through, or with a client, stuff like that. Magicians and bands, and you see all this sort of, entertainment that maybe you didn't think about online at one time, but now that some people are stuck in their house, it just seems to work much better for everyone. People are looking for some excitement. So face-to-face events are obviously so much smaller right now, and with that, there's also the virtual events. But in both cases, they don't speak to the volume that this industry has been built on for years. So it changes the pricing, right? It changes the whole pricing model. The financial model for the industry basically, again, has been turned on its ear. Any thoughts on how we should be thinking about pricing in this environment?
I think we have to have Matt answer this first, since he's a direct buyer client.
Wow, that was a punt if I've ever seen one.
I second that.
I think what we're seeing a lot is across the board, everyone's budgets have been slashed, at least on the corporate side. Budgets have been slashed like crazy. Whether it's me wanting to go to an event or me hosting an event, you have to be very careful what you do with pricing. I know a lot of companies look at it as revenue driving, but kind of the model we've taken is we put it out there, but if there's big fish that we really want attending, we will go and we'll give them promotions. We'll say, hey, maybe you can't attend because it's too expensive or this or that. We work with them, and especially if it's a current client, we do kind of take that cost out. Like, well, you're already paying us, so you can come and enjoy this for free. So just a number of different ways, but we're very conscious of, especially with the industries that we operate in, making sure that we're not outpricing it, because there's so much content coming on a daily basis. I think I get about 100 emails a day saying join our webinar. So trying to stay relevant.
And I think too, what becomes important, when you go virtual, I think it's very important to not forget the personal. And a lot of what we're talking about, like sort of these little niche, almost vignette experiences now that people can have at their computer in terms of the gifts they might get or the one-on-one chatting that they can do that they might not have been able to do had they been sitting in a live audience or part of a large conference. And I think as you move forward in terms of the selling side of things, I think it's important to remember to stay personal. Those relationships matter. Like Matt, you're talking about, if you have a good client or you have a pre-existing relationship that's in really good standing, this is the time to really have that conversation and utilize that relationship.
I would say that if you're a professional, which we all are, and you're presenting your services, then they have to be value added to the buyer. So you still have intellect, you still have customer service, you still have expertise, you still have an organization behind you and all that. So you're providing that, so that's worth a fee. I think what our industry is facing with that, the volume is about 10% of what it was. So you don't want to, 10 times your fee so you don't get anything, but you shouldn't really reduce it either, in my opinion. You should work within the budget, so maybe you do reduce it, but ultimately a steak at Gino and Giorgetti's is still the best steak, so it's going to cost this much during a pandemic, outside or inside. So you're still getting the highest quality that you can get. So I think people really have to just really realize they're worth a certain amount per hour. And maybe they don't get as many hours in the year, the 2,000 that they used to bill, but they're still worth the hours they put in. Well, maybe I'll start because we're part of our core business is hotel sourcing on behalf of our clients, and it went from a 10% to a 7% model over the last few years. And we're seeing that migrate into a fee for service for project management post-COVID. And there's still always independent providers giving you higher percentage if you book in a need period and stuff like that. So I think they do work, but ultimately any incentive that a buyer has, or particularly an intermediary, you have a fiduciary responsibility to what's right and to deliver what's right. So it has some effect, and it's certainly worth a marketing effort, but I don't think it's a driver of your business model.
So if anything, the only real change is maybe the numbers are a little smaller based upon volume and competition.
I would agree, because there are historical deals that were inked for 2020 that says if you do X million, you'll get this percent, and now it's not X million, it's 10 or something.
Right.
So yeah, I do see lower numbers.
So on the wedding front, I've started doing smaller, we do what we call small celebrations. So we do between 15 and about 35, because that's what within the city of Chicago and state of Illinois that we can do safely. I've done a handful of those. As far as some of my larger events and some of my corporate clients, I won't see any of that again until 2021. Everything moved.
Okay. Matt?
Yeah, I think we're reviewing right now. I don't know if we'll see anything first quarter of 2021. We're kind of tiptoeing lightly. We did have great success with our virtual event. So now that our leadership team has seen that, they kind of say, well, we can do it online. So we might move everything there unless something were to change. So we're kind of in a holding pattern right now. But probably realistically from the corporate side, later in 2021, I think is when we'll start to see more live events start to pop up.
Okay, Sean?
Yeah, I would add that not only do we have a pandemic, we also have a recession, in my opinion, particularly in our vertical industry. So business travel has been restricted, not only for safety, but for financial reasons.
Yep.
So hence, conferences and everything else, these business meetings and other trade shows are really restricted, even incentives for that matter. So we are doing small board of directors meetings, strategic planning meetings, face-to-face, and those are ongoing. They're less than 25% of what they used to be. We're seeing most of second quarter of 21 holding firm, 21 moving into the first quarter of 21. Some are still pending, but they're kind of waiting post return to school and everything else to make a firm decision. But some are already moving in the second and third quarter of 21.
Okay.
Not full cancellations of the face-to-face yet. For 21, more of a deferral.
And that's what I'm hoping for.
Same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would sadly
More
say
of a
it
hope
might be-
than a prediction, I think, right? I'm like you said, Matt, treading carefully. I think that's where I'm at. I'm sort of hoping that that's going to be where we end up returning.
So,
I mean, Michelle,
with-
the wedding season will probably be full force May on, I would think. But I think business meetings, it might take till third quarter.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. Some of my weddings are 500 plus people. And so that's, I do my weddings are large scale. So for those clients that have that large, and a lot of them have a travel component, many of them are destination. I had clients that were planning weddings in Italy next year. That's probably not happening because so much of those vendors too, even internationally, have been so decimated. The venue that one of my clients was interested in having her wedding at no longer exists. So I'm seeing a little bit of that too.
Okay.
So there's a lot of people talking about virtual events, how to make them engaging, entertaining, all those things that we long for. So you guys are professionals. Let's share some of your sort of top events, virtual events that you've seen, and maybe some of the success stories. And let's give the audience some things that they can take home with them.
I'll jump in first. I know, Matt, you referenced you just finished one, but I think in concept, without naming the name, I think the key is really to broadcast it. If you think of somebody at home, they'll have the TV on and they'll binge watch and they'll keep going. Nobody's binge watching or Zooming. They just get tired of it really quick. So you have to really broadcast it, have a professional lighting, enthusiasm. So I think the broadcast component.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Yeah. And I mean, Michelle, to that point, I mean, TED Talks has been around forever, 18 minutes. And how many times have we gone up and had a speaker just babble on for 45 minutes or an hour, and you're like, oh my God, get me out of here. So it's even more important in a virtual event. Michelle or Matt?
I think production value is more important now than ever, which I feel sounds counterintuitive because you're taking away the live component. And like earlier, we spoke about the importance of experiential elements. I think production value brings that. I think like Sean had said, when the lighting is correctly done and the sound is good, and even if it is Zoom or if it's some other way that you're seeing that you're accessing the digital or virtual part of the event, when it's beautifully produced, it's that much more experiential. Because like you brought up something, Sean, that's interesting about binge watching. People do still go to television and movies for experiences, right? That's the whole part of like the movies take you somewhere. So if beautifully produced, a virtual event can do the same thing. So while I can't necessarily specify an actual event that I've attended virtually recently, because I'm always doing something work related. What I can tell you is those meetings, those experiences that I've been a part of where production value is key, where they have someone actually producing, worrying about sound, worrying about lighting, worrying about, how to make it feel fluid. I think that makes a huge difference. And I think what's great about that is I believed that to be a huge priority for face-to-face in-person events long before this pandemic. So to see that carry through, I think it's a really good thing. I think it speaks to the quality of those vendors that provide those services and the importance of them, and also just the importance of the industry overall. You still need a producer, you still need lighting, you still need sound, you still need all of those things. And I think that's a good thing on many fronts.
Well, that certainly reinforces what Sean said earlier about there's still a great deal of value in what we all do, regardless of the marketplace. So, Matt, what do you think?
I think for us, the biggest thing has really been keeping it very simple. So if it's not something in Zoom and you're actually building a platform or working with someone to build a platform for you where you can house all on-demand videos or whatever it may be, live streaming sessions. I know I see a lot of companies with a lot of bells and whistles, which is great. But if I'm a user and I'm only coming in for 3 or 4 hours, I don't want to have to sit there and toggle through and try and figure things out. Our biggest success was we kept it bare bones minimum. Everything was very intuitive. People knew where to go. And I think that helped us a lot. But some of the stuff that I do see that I like is people are also starting to offer those curated things you can do. They can, you can work with a vendor to have a cooking class done, and all the products are sent there in advance. And I know people have actually started enjoying that because while you're at home, you can cook. I've seen some interesting ones where they can actually do stuff with kids, and they'll take them through a tour of a different museum and give the parents some time to, especially when kids weren't in school over the summer, it really gave the parents time to be like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to take care of work, and they can watch a video on something cool at a museum.
Yeah, that's all great stuff.
And I would add that if you think some of the great live events you've been to, whether they're live concerts or sporting events or whatever, they create that experience that Michelle's enforced. And so people should have countdown clocks, they should have music, they should have all those experiences, and they should pump up the volume at a certain time and lower at others. So there's a lot of things we've all learned over the years that we need to use in a virtual world too. And we did have cooking classes at a live event, so why not do it virtual too? And then it takes more advanced planning, but it's very effective. And people remember that a year from now, 2 years, which is the intent of getting people together.
Well, it's interesting. I like that, Sean. My father always says that necessity is the mother of invention, right? And I think right now there is no better time or no more necessary time than to be creative or inventive. And so for us, for example, on the very large scale with events, or on the much smaller scale with our restaurant in Chicago, we're trying to do a lot of that as well. We have had success seasonally over the last several years with wine dinners, where people come into one or both of our locations and they have this beautiful experience. We've now made that virtual, where we pair a meal, like I mentioned earlier, what we're doing with the virtual events. We pair a meal, a bottle of wine, we have a rep and our chef. So people are in their own home at their own kitchen. And some of them, they do preparation. Some of them, they can pick up the meals ready. It just depends. We're getting ready to launch this as not only as a form of revenue for the restaurant that will so desperately need it, right? Especially as Chicago and Illinois moves into winter here in the Midwest, but also for our customers, so that they can continue to be connected to us, which is another really important part of what we do, is that clients, customers, people with whom we interact, audience members, people that sign up to attend, what it is that we all produce and bring to life, they're looking for a connection of some sort, be it additional information, continuing education, learning about a museum. So maybe they're passionate about art history, whatever the case may be, they're looking to connect. And so these events allow that to happen as well. And I think that's a really important part of it too.
That's great. So I'm going to take this to a second here to do a cheap commercial. There's another session that we're doing throughout the week that's going to be about not-for-profit and corporate planners, and how to sort of bring that positive value to corporate in addition to just not-for-profit. But it's run by a woman. Her company is Live Art International, and they sort of specialize in bringing, I mentioned earlier, I think, artists. If you could get a painter to do live painting, they're great. Sent wine glasses that you can paint with them, all sorts of entertainment. Another cool idea, another partner that I've learned this through, but it's Odyssey Teams it's called, and they literally will send prosthetic hands to all the people in the audience that you make together online, and then they send it to people in need in third world countries, which I think I had a meeting with these people the other day, but I mean, in today's environment, people are looking to see something good and participating something good and do good for other people. So I thought that was another client that we work with, Mediatainment. They do live game shows that they can do and involve in your events and your businesses. So you mentioned that, the idea of innovation, and I'm just seeing it in waves. It's just, that's really, I mean, that has to be the most positive thing I've seen in our industry in the last 6 months, just the amount of innovation, how hard people are working to innovate. And so I just, those are some takeaways for the audience. So any other thoughts on that before we shift off?
Well, I would add that it's we've all learned a lot in 6 months. There's been virtual events, hybrid events, but now there's a lot of innovation and thought going into it. So, Tim, even your own company has improved dramatically, and I applaud you for that. So I think we just keep learning from each other, because as we come back face to face, we're still going to have that hybrid factor and feature. So it'll be important to do what's best and learn from each other.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And definitely, I see this as being a part of what we do and who we are for a long time, because there's definitely things you can do that you can't really do to this same extent in person, especially when you get into budgets. So
Can I just add one quick thing too?
Yeah.
When you're talking about innovation and how much we've learned in the last 6 months, I think that's a credit as an industry overall to who we all are as creatives and as producers and as doers and makers of moments, of bringing these moments to life. We're able to do what we do because of the experiences we've had. So,
True.
The innovation has come from the knowledge that we had garnered along the way. And I think that speaks a lot to who we are as an industry and how special we are as an industry and why we're so worth preserving. And I think that's not only something that's positive, I think it needs to be celebrated. Because the innovation that we're seeing comes from years of how many times have we done events where like you're in the middle of something and it's really stressful, like this person that just popped up on the screen behind me. So, right, live events are never like we plan and man plans and God laughs, right? And so I feel like we are now in a place where we can pull on all of those experiences and just be tenacious as we need to be in order to get through it. So I think that's worth mentioning.
yeah, I think it's totally worth mentioning. Thanks for doing it. So a lot of what's happened here, and that people shifting from in-person to virtual events, it's meant new mediums, right? It's meant new tools, it's meant new relationships. And so we've got a lot of feedback from planners that we work with that it's been hard to choose the right software. How do you negotiate with? So I can tell you from our team, Dylan, who is largely responsible for putting all this together on our team, him and his team took 20-some different pitches from virtual software companies for us to choose the software partners that we chose for our summit this week. So I know it's a lot of work. I know there's a lot of moving parts. Do you guys have any advice for how to work with these virtual event products? And is there any negotiation? Turns out they're pretty popular right now. So is there a negotiation there, or is it, you pay to play and that's it? What have you guys learned?
Isn't there a negotiation everywhere though, really, when you think about it?
I like how you leaned in to make that point too, by the way, Michelle.
Well, I'll start. Besides, there's always room for negotiation, but it's back to the fees and what's the value.
Mm-hmm.
What do these platforms bring to the table? Some of them are so popular that they can't even produce an event later in September or early October or December, whenever you want to have it. So you have to go through it's a procurement process, it's a buying process. Most producers will say they can produce it on any platform though. So I think it really gets into what kind of engagement you want, what you're trying to achieve. You have Six Connect and many others that you can interface a Zoom feature into it, and then you can bring the experience of using the partners to ship out the wine glasses and everything. So it's really multiple vendor management, and the platform is just one of it. I think what we've seen in meeting planners is they used to let the IT person do all the technology, and that was probably a mistake, because now the meeting planners should be part of the IT department to make some of these decisions. So I see that really being part of the crossover. Matt, not sure, I mean, you guys have been doing virtual for a long time in video, but probably have different supplier partners as well.
Yeah, it kind of came to a new level with everything, obviously, like everyone. And so one of the first things that we did was we kind of took what our requirements would be. We built scenarios. So what is that attendee looking for? And we based that on a live event. So here's what attendee A is going to do. Here's what attendee B wants to do. And then we put that into a virtual setting and built business requirements. I think we had something 12 pages of business requirements of what we wanted the systems to do. And we could kind of cut and choose. So it was like the stuff at the top was mandatory. When I say requirements, we didn't have to have it all. There was mandatory stuff, and then the likes to have was closer to the bottom. But we made sure that we knew what we wanted and then went out to the vendors, because that helped us kind of think, okay, well, who is going to be the best? Who's going to be the ones where we can check off all the boxes? And then what are some areas, we highlighted the areas they couldn't do and kind of pursued, okay, well, we can't do it with you, but you can get a plug-in and we can do that with this vendor instead. So like Sean said, it's a ton of different vendors that you kind of have to bring together, but you do that with a live event as well. So it's just trying to make sure you know what you want and learn along the way as well, because there are some things you didn't even know were available.
Yeah, that's really good insight. So I'm going to build on that with the next question. So in today's environment, we are, you're looking at, I guess the value proposition has shifted some, right? So what are 3 things that a vendor or venue can do to make their business more appealing to meeting and event planners? 3 things a vendor or venue can do to make their business more appealing to meeting and event planners. Michelle?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Matt, you and I were just talking about this a second ago. Not to forget that we're out here, and not to forget to talk to us, and if you can, and if it's relevant, and if we're able to still discuss things like site visits, even if they can't be right now in this moment in person, discuss the possibility of them, or reach out to those that you have worked with, and have a certain kind of communication with them. Loved having you in this space, loved doing this event with you. This is what we're thinking, and then look at the ones you haven't worked with and that you maybe would like to bring into the space. And here's what we know right now. Here's what we're doing. Maybe there's some kind of new virtual experience you can show them immediately. Maybe there's a new digital brochure or website or something that you can start conversation with. I think we like to feel that we are out here and know that people know we're out here. So saying like hello to planners and keeping that dialogue going, I think is important.
I agree.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think people, COVID has caused a lot of anxiety and some degree of depression for a lot of people, and it's not over, so we still got a long way to go. So maybe vendors aren't selling or any suppliers, so it's a different kind of game, but you should absolutely marketing. You should be proud of your product, and if you're not proud, you probably should go somewhere else. But if you have a quality product, you should be proud. And if you perform outstanding service, customer service and food service and lighting and heating and whatever platforms for virtual platforms, you should be proud of that. You should really sell that service. The fees are the negotiating part. So the fee matters. We talked about that a little bit earlier, but I think people should be marketing themselves. And what Michelle said, the tools are available. What is it, the Geico commercial where the guy says, can you get in the back seat now and raise the hood and stuff? So you have to use the tools available now.
Yeah.
It's different, but people like that, and always be authentic. Matt, I mean, you've been buying your whole life. Thoughts?
I think right now we are somewhat siloed. Everyone's working from home. So I don't know, I can't go to a networking event. I can't find out what other people are doing, where it's like, hey, who's this vendor? Who's this vendor? Or even with a venue, it's how are you setting up your rooms? What does everything look like? We also check their website to say, hey, is that updated? Because if our attendees are going somewhere, they're not going to ask us. They're going to go to that website, want to see, well, what is the venue doing? So those are some big things for us right now. We're like, we need your help telling us what we can and cannot do, or what you can and cannot do. And then we can make that decision going forward.
Well, you mentioned the website. We actually have heard that from a lot of planners that, so many businesses are running on smaller teams, and that's affecting the way they communicate, both from the standpoint of what they put on their website. You get to their website, it's clearly dated, or worse yet, it's not clearly dated. You don't know if it's current or not. So that's actually a takeaway for businesses to make sure for your hours and your offers that it's clear that your website is current as of today's date, because there's so many that are out of a date right now, and it's very frustrating. But the other thing we're hearing from planners is that there's lots of suppliers that are not getting back to them. You know, they're not returning calls and so forth. So any thoughts on that? Is that a real thing?
It's definitely, for me personally, when I reach to hotels in terms of room blocks and things like that, I've experienced some, you know, people being furloughed or people just no longer having the position that they're in, which is an unfortunate, very unfortunate, awful reality that the industry is living through right now. And it's, you know, you see, I've experienced personally where people that were the directors of catering are now back working on specific, you know, event related kinds of day-to-day tasks, right? So I've seen that kind of change a little bit. I think the important thing is to just keep trying to get to somebody at a place. Someone is there. You just have to be, as a planner, I think it's our responsibility to continue to keep trying and keep communicating to eventually reach that person. And I think for those of us in business, you know, like I own my own business. And so for me at this time, talking about websites getting outdated or not being current, social media platforms, maybe the content isn't as new as it could have been because events aren't happening. As an owner, for me as a business owner, now it's never been more important than right in this moment to make sure that the messaging is current. Even if I'm using older content, I can talk about things I've learned in the last several months or things I'm now applying. And it's so important to look at all of those platforms, websites, social media, your LinkedIn, all of those things. That may be how other people are connected to in the industry. And if they can't necessarily get you through a work email, maybe they can get you through that too. So that it's important to think about all of those platforms.
Yeah. So this all being said, Sean, you might have some perspective on this. What do businesses do to, or what do suppliers do to stand out?
I mean, just to backtrack for a second, and I'll point that out. I mean, the hotels, for example, we do a lot of businesses, hotels, and if their spas closed, they need to note that on their website, in our opinion. If their restaurants are closed or only open for outdoor dining, they need to note that, or put it in their email signature, some things like that. So over communicating is always important, and it's extra important in this virtual environment that we're living in. I think some of the leaders figure out ways to do it. You see at restaurants, they have these tents, just gorgeous tents, open air seating, comfortable seating that they rented out for the whole season. They're really differentiated. They plan ahead, they think about it. They realize they're only going to have the waiter serve and bus the table, where they used to have a whole team because they only want one person interacting. You see some high-end luxury properties where hand sanitizer is a standard amenity in the guest room now. Never was before. The touchless technology really being deployed quickly, so you can check in on your mobile phone, never go buy anything. When you come in buildings now, people have invested in the temperature mapping, et cetera. So there's a lot of people that are really, back to our innovation comment earlier, really making some strides. It's very impressive, and they are standing out, and they will definitely get business, and they'll be remembered also.
Yeah, that's actually very, very helpful. So, we now have 3 professors here in the industry in front of me. And we're going to ask you, we have a young student who is wanting to get into the industry in front of us, and we're giving them some advice on, you know, what you should be focused on for the next 6 to 12 months. What skills should you be honing? What should you be reading maybe? How can you get better? And I think these are some obviously lessons that we can all use right now as we try to adjust to this new normal.
So a tip that I would give, and this has not changed, this is a tip that I always like to give young professionals starting, is learn how to write. So invest in a book, you know, tips from how to properly write a formal letter, what a salutation looks like, what a greeting, how you conclude a letter, how you write a proposal, how to edit, like the importance of communicating. As Sean was just saying, over communicating now is more important than ever. If you know how to do it properly, that's going to further differentiate you. That's exactly what Sean was just talking about. The more eloquent, the more articulate, and the more streamlined, which Matt had mentioned earlier, when a process is simple and you're not looking through all of these things to get the message, that's when it resonates most. And that's what's going to stick now. And so to me, it would be learn how to write. Make sure that, if you are going on Zooms and you are going live, practice. Make sure that this is a skill you are practicing, like everything else, like how you produce an event, how you write a timeline, how you communicate with a myriad of vendors is a skill you acquire by practice and by doing it. So are these. So that would be my first thing would be spend time cultivating the ability to communicate both verbally and in writing.
Yeah, that's very important. Other thoughts? Professors?
I have made my team start to learn the basics of HTML and CSS, all the coding stuff. And I said, just the basics, because, we don't have to speak in terms of, I know everything about AV. I have a very good understanding of AV being in the industry, but I still go to an expert to help me. Hey, this is what I want to do. What do I need? And they can piece that together. So what we did is we've done a lot, start learning all of that stuff, because that language isn't going to go away in our industry. So just better understanding that, I think, is one of the biggest things right now, is what can be done and how can you, because I know if I have to change any sort of code or if I have to ask someone else to do it, that delays me 24, 48 hours, and it might be something simple. But if I can do it myself, I can pop in and take care of that right away.
Yeah, that's a very efficient way to look at it.
Yeah, I would add, I think continuous learning or professional development is a key to success. I really do. And I think COVID is, this pandemic is highlighting the need for it even more so. Michelle, I love the writing because it's so back to basics and it's really so true. Matt, I don't know about the code. I don't know if I can learn it.
I stayed old school on purpose, but I'm very impressed with Matt's answer.
Think of a meeting planner where they welcome guests, whether it's VIP guests or just somebody who's just media guests. And then an hour later, they have to appeal to the general manager to keep the lights on for another 2 hours with firmness. It's a very diverse skill set and competencies. So I would do a self-assessment where you are, and always leverage your strengths and develop your weaknesses. And some of them are just business acumen. If you don't know Excel, this is a good time to learn Excel. YouTube, you're going to do budgets the rest of your life. Access on top of that would be that. Presentation skills are very learnable, and there's classes. So if you're going to present to the C-suite, well, you might as well learn how to present, tell that story, things like that. If you look at some of the jobs, some people just got released or furloughed or whatever. So what are the jobs? Well, there's a lot of jobs in social media marketing. Well, marketing events is critical. Most meeting planners just say, oh, the marketing department's going to do that. But if you actually learn marketing, event marketing, social media, and then even graphics, which might be like the HTML, you're going to be much more well-rounded by December 31st than if you're just kind of wondering what's going to go on. So those are some thoughts.
Sean, I love it. You actually did sound like a professor.
That's why I wore the tie, just to get away with it.
It worked. That's great. Okay, think about the most effective planners that you work with. What are the top 3 qualities that they share that we could pass along to our audience here?
I think being a planner myself and being a part of a community of planners, the ones that I enjoy collaborating with the most and the ones that I see that have the most success, as I mentioned earlier, know how to communicate effectively. I think organization is key. Right now with this COVID environment in which we are all living, I think organization is more important than ever. Sean had alluded to, when someone can't get back to you, how frustrating that is. You email and there isn't a response. So I think those planners that are on it every day and still have the discipline of responding in a timely fashion, that makes a huge difference. So for me, it would be those 3 things. I think communication, organization, and response time, I think are 3 really things that you can still do right, sort of right in the palm of your hand, that are not too complicated, that make a big difference.
Yeah, for sure.
I would add, and before I turn over to Matt, who's an outstanding planner, so it'll be interesting to see what he says, because you got all the skills. To add to what Michelle said, they all have integrity and honesty, and they really want to seek to innovate. So they realize they can learn from anybody. So they're really always open for that. And then another one to think about is they're strategic. They really think about the end in mind, and they know that there's going to be some highs and lows, but they're going to learn and have the end in mind. Matt, and drum roll for you now.
There we go.
Yeah. So Michelle, I mean, two similar things to you where it's that organize. I mean, sweat the small stuff. I think that's one of the big things that I always do. Put yourself in the attendee's shoes and walk through the entire event before it even happens. And then communication, it's execute with confidence. I know, especially when you're on site, everyone looks to you to be the expert. You can't say, well, I don't really know. You just have to know what you're doing and hope that it works out some of the times. And then finally, just keep learning. I think that's what we've all experienced through this entire COVID thing is you have to keep learning and adapting.
That's great. All right, we're going to wrap it up with the final question here. So let's close with something positive, okay? So let's finish with something that you've learned professionally through COVID that you're thankful for, something positive.
You know, I actually love this question because I have found that going through this experience, so being in the events industry, owning a venue and owning restaurants has put me at a crossroads of lots of unemployment. So from one point of view, it could have felt very negative. And instead, what I'm finding is all of the silver linings along the way. There have been evolutions that have happened within our Gene and Giorgetti restaurant brand that is now almost 80 years old that have been revolutionary for this brand. And that probably wouldn't have happened without the enormity of a global pandemic and the amount of conversations and connections that I've made with my clients and within my planning company and figuring out, okay, who is going to go virtual? How do we do that? How does this new opportunity work for you? Or maybe it doesn't. How can I comfort my clients, right? Executing with confidence, like Matt said, I love that. And with kindness too, touching on what Sean said about integrity. I have found so many more people stepping up and being people of honor that it's been so inspiring. So that's my takeaway is the constant silver linings and just connecting with people in this industry and just cheering for all of them because so many of them have stepped up.
Love it. Love it. Sean?
Michelle, that's powerful. And Tim, thank you for having us, by the way. And Matt and Michelle, great hanging with you on this panel. Some free time has occurred, not right away, but so you really get to plan your free time. And with that, to me, it's really, what is your purpose? Because we've been running, going through TSA. And your purpose, I've always been in growth and sales, isn't all money. It's really not money. It's the people, the family, your colleagues and your clients and your friends and the people that need it in this, in our community. So to me, it's been an opportunity to define your purpose and redefine your purpose and help others as well.
So true.
Thank you, Tim.
I love it. I love it. Matt?
Yeah. Similar along those lines, it's not everything is a rush at this point. I mean, we're learning as we go. And normally I feel like we have to move 1,000,000 miles an hour. But with all the uncertainty right now, we have had that experience to, okay, let's slow down for a second. Let's relook at everything that's been going on. I think that's been a huge advantage of being stuck in this current new normal. You are appreciating certain things a little bit more, but you're also learning to grow and slow down. And I kind of like that I've been able to stop and take a breath and reanalyze a few things in different areas. So that's been great.
Well, thank you. This has been a tremendous panel. I learned a ton. I hope our audience did too. Before we close though.
Yes.
Before we close, I'm actually going to put you on the spot, Michelle. I meant to ask you earlier about the Illinois Events Coalition. So can you take 60 seconds and give our audience a commercial on what's going on there?
Absolutely. So my husband, Colin Pearson, and a very dear friend of mine, Allie Phillips, and I co-founded the Illinois Events Coalition to be a collective voice within Illinois for all event professionals, from the live events industry to the wedding industry to conferences, or to any part of this large umbrella that creates and brings events to life. We wanted to have a place in Illinois where we could educate, advocate, and support. And so we are the Illinois Events Coalition, and that is what we do. So please join us.
That's awesome. And what's your website? Is there somewhere you'd like to direct us for more information, or your social media?
On Instagram, we are IL Events Coalition. And I believe the website is www.illinoiseventscoalition.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks again to you guys. Much appreciated. And I hope you enjoyed this and it brought you some value that you can bring back to your own business. Enjoy the rest of the summit.